The mysterious encounter. The bar was dark and smoky, the kind of place where people went to forget their troubles. John had been there for hours, nursing his drink, his mind lost in thought. Life had never been kind to him, and today was no different. He just needed a few minutes to himself, away from the world. The door creaked open and John barely glanced up. People came and went, nothing unusual. But then, something caught his eye. A tall figure walked in. The person was unlike anyone John had ever seen before. The man was tall, with greenish skin and strange glowing eyes. His face was sharp, almost inhuman, but he walked like he belonged there, as if nothing was out of place. The man's eyes swept the room before landing on John. For a moment, it felt like the world had gone silent, and John couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. The stranger made his way toward him, his footsteps oddly quiet for someone of his size. "Mind if I join you?" the man asked, his voice smooth and deep, but something about it felt off. John hesitated but nodded. He didn't know why, but he couldn't bring himself to say no. The man sat across from him, his eyes never leaving John's face. There was something strange about the way he looked at him. Too intense, too knowing. John shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "My name's Zorath," the man said, his smile sharp but not unfriendly. "I have a proposition for you." John frowned. He had heard people offer all kinds of things in bars, but this felt different. There was an air of mystery around Zorath, something John couldn't quite place. "I'm listening," John said cautiously, his curiosity getting the better of him. Zorath leaned forward, his glowing eyes narrowing slightly. "I have 3 daughters, but they are not of this world. They are very special to me, and I need to part with them." John's brows furrowed. "What does that mean? You want to sell them or something?" Zorath's smile deepened. "In a way, yes. I need to give them away. Trade them for something I can't get on my own. They will be yours. For a price." John's head was spinning now. Was this some kind of joke? Or was this guy actually serious? He tried to shake off the unease creeping up his spine. "And what's the price?" John asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Zorath's smile stretched wider. "A simple drink, a little trade, 1 drink and they will be yours." John blinked in disbelief. "You're joking, right? You want to give me your daughters for a drink?" Zorath's gaze remained steady. "Not just any drink. A drink that will connect us, one that will bind our fates together. But it's not about the drink. It's about what comes after." John's heart skipped a beat. He could feel his pulse quickening. This was crazy, but something about the man's words felt real, urgent. "What's the catch?" John finally asked, his voice tense. Zorath leaned back in his chair, the faintest glimmer of something darker flashing in his eyes. "There's always a catch, my friend, but that's for you to find out." With that, Zorath reached into his coat and pulled out a small vial filled with a strange, glowing liquid. The liquid shimmered in the dim light, its color shifting from green to blue to violet. It looked almost alive. John stared at it for a long moment, trying to make sense of it all, but there was no turning back now. Curiosity, and something else he couldn't explain, pushed him to reach for the vial. As his fingers brushed against the glass, he heard a soft whisper behind him. He turned, but the room was still. The girls were standing at the far end of the bar now, their eyes locked on him. They didn't move, but there was something in their gaze, something unsettling. John took a deep breath. He had no idea what he was about to get into, but he had already crossed a line. And in that moment, he knew his life would never be the same. The deal. The air in the bar grew heavier as Zorath slid the vial closer toward John. The glowing liquid inside seemed to pulse with a life of its own, casting strange shadows across the table. John's hand hovered above it, torn between his gut feeling that something was terribly wrong and the undeniable curiosity that pulled him forward. Zorath watched him closely, his expression unreadable. "Take it," he said simply, his voice smooth, almost hypnotic. "It's yours now." John's fingers trembled as he reached for the vial. He didn't know why, but there was something about the liquid that felt important. It wasn't just a drink. It was a choice. One that would change everything. His mind screamed at him to walk away, but his body moved of its own accord, uncapping the vial and lifting it to his lips. The liquid was warm as it slid down his throat, but it tasted nothing like anything he'd ever had before. It was as though it didn't belong in this world, spicy and sweet, with a strange aftertaste that lingered in the back of his mind. Almost immediately, John felt the world around him blur for a split second, his vision flickering, in and out like a malfunctioning television screen. He blinked, trying to focus, but the room was suddenly much more intense. The sounds of the bar, the clinking of glasses, the murmurs of conversation, the low hum of a broken jukebox seemed to amplify, rushing into his ears all at once. The lights above flickered, and a cold shiver ran up his spine. Zorath was still watching him, his sharp eyes gleaming with an unreadable emotion. "Now you see," he said softly. "Now you understand." John's heart skipped a beat. "Understand what?" he asked, his voice unsteady. His head felt heavy, and for a moment it was as though the room was spinning. He tried to shake it off, but the strange feeling only grew stronger. "You see them?" Zorath said, his voice like a whisper in the back of John's mind. John turned slowly, following the alien's gaze. The three girls who had been silently observing him from across the room were now standing closer. They weren't standing like normal people. No, they were positioned in a way that felt intentional, almost too perfect. Their eyes locked onto his, and for a moment John felt as though they were looking right through him. Their beauty was striking, almost otherworldly. One had hair that shimmered with silver strands, another had skin that glowed faintly under the dim light, and the third, her eyes were entirely black like two endless voids, but there was something comforting about them, something that made John's heart race even faster. John's mouth went dry. "What is this?" His voice came out in a whisper, his pulse quickening, with panic. Zorath didn't answer immediately. Instead, he simply smiled, his sharp teeth gleaming in the dim light. "They are yours now. But be careful, John. What you've just accepted goes beyond the drink. The bond is more than physical, it's mental, emotional, and it will change everything." John's head was spinning, and his stomach churned. He had heard of deals, strange ones, even mythical ones, but nothing like this. He had no idea what kind of forces he had just tied himself to. The girls moved closer, and suddenly the air seemed to thicken around them. It was as if they were pulling the very atmosphere in their direction, making everything feel heavier. They didn't speak, but John could feel their presence pressing on him, their gazes searching him, studying him. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice trembling. Zorath leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "It's not what I want from you, John. It's what they need. And now, you're the one who will have to decide what happens next." John swallowed hard, his throat dry. The girls were standing so close now he could feel their breath on his skin, and his thoughts became clouded. The room was fading in and out of focus, and for a moment, it was as if time itself had slowed down. He couldn't look away from the girls, their eyes pulling him in deeper. Suddenly, the weight of it all hit him. He had made a choice, but he had no idea what that choice truly meant. The strange, glowing liquid still lingered in his body, making him feel dizzy, as if he were no longer entirely in control of his actions. Zorath's words echoed in his mind. The bond is more than physical. It's mental. As the girls closed, in around him, their eyes still locked on his, John realized he was no longer just part of the world he had known. The life he had walked into this bar with was slipping away, and something darker, something far more dangerous, was beginning to take its place. Realizing the consequences, John felt a strange, unsettling calm settle over him as the girls moved closer. The dim bar seemed to grow quieter, the music fading into the background. The world around him felt distant, as though he were watching everything unfold from behind a thick glass. His hand shook slightly and he felt the drink's lingering warmth spread through his veins like wildfire. But that wasn't what made his stomach twist with unease. It was them. The three alien girls were beautiful, yes, but their beauty was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Each one seemed to embody a different, impossible aspect of the universe. The girl with the silver hair moved like liquid metal, her eyes reflecting the light in strange, iridescent ways. The one with glowing skin exuded an almost otherworldly radiance, as though the very essence of stars lived inside her. The third, with black, void-like eyes, held John's gaze longer than the others, and he couldn't shake the feeling that she was looking straight into his soul, reading his every thought. He tried to speak, but his voice caught in his throat. One of them, the one with silver hair, smiled softly and took a step forward. Her presence was both serene and overwhelming. "You're wondering what happens next, aren't you?" she asked, her voice like the soft hum of distant music. John didn't know how to respond. His mind was racing, but his mouth felt paralyzed. His fingers gripped the edge of the table, as if he were trying to hold on to something solid in a world that was beginning to feel less and less real. The glowing girl stepped forward next, her face calm but serious. "You've made your choice. Now you must understand the consequences." "Consequences?" John echoed, his voice barely more than a breath. "What does that even mean? What's going on? You're not human. You're—" He couldn't finish the sentence. The words felt meaningless, as if the truth of what he was seeing couldn't be described in the language he knew. The girl with the black eyes, the one who had been silent until now, tilted her head ever so slightly. There was something chilling in her gaze. "Not human," she said slowly, her voice soft but carrying a strange weight. "But we are more than you can comprehend, and you are more than you realize." John swallowed hard, trying to push past the growing panic. "What do you want? From me?" The words escaped before he could stop them, but even as he said them, he knew the answer. The truth was already here, wrapped in the dark silence between them. The silver-haired girl nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving his. "You're not just a participant in this exchange, John. You're part of something far bigger, a catalyst, a bridge." "A bridge?" John repeated, his mind struggling to piece things together. "A bridge to what?" But instead of answering, the glowing girl raised her hand, and the room around them seemed to shudder. The air grew colder, and a strange pressure filled the space between John and the girls. The world outside the bar seemed to fade away completely. Suddenly, the girl's voice, though soft, echoed in his mind as if it were his own thoughts. "The bond has already been forged, John. You can feel it, can't you?" John's breath caught in his throat. The weight of her words seemed to press against his chest. It was true. The bond. It was real. Something had shifted the moment he drank, that glowing liquid. He could feel it now, deep within him. There was something alive inside him, something connected to them. His pulse raced as he tried to shake off the panic. "What did you do to me?" he demanded, his voice strained. The black-eyed girl smiled faintly, a knowing smile that sent chills down his spine. "We didn't do anything to you, John. We've merely revealed the path ahead. You're not the same person anymore. You've crossed over into a world you can't escape from now." A cold sweat broke out on John's forehead. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't want any of this. I just wanted a drink, just a drink." The silver-haired girl's expression softened, but it did little to calm the storm inside him. "You wanted more than a drink, John. You wanted change. You wanted something beyond the ordinary. And now you have it. But with that comes responsibility." John's mind was spinning. This was impossible. How could a simple drink do all of this? His thoughts were scattered, and the reality of what was happening felt like a bad dream that he couldn't wake up from. "Responsibility?" he repeated, his voice trembling. "What do you mean? What are you asking me to do?" The girls exchanged a quiet glance, and for the first time, John realized that they weren't just observing him. They were waiting for him to understand. The glowing girl spoke again, her voice now carrying an eerie finality. What we've offered you is not a gift, John. It is a challenge. The choice was yours, but now you must decide what kind of person you will be in this new world. John looked at them, his mind racing to comprehend everything they had just said. There was no turning back now. The decision had been made, the path set in motion. But, as his gaze shifted to the three girls, a terrifying question bubbled to the surface. What did it mean to be connected to them, and what were they really here for? The answers were just out of reach, but one thing was certain. His life had changed forever, and he had no idea where this new path would lead him. A dark secret. The bar felt strangely empty now, even though the dim chatter of patrons still filled the room. But to John, everything had shifted. It was as if the walls themselves had closed in around him and the world outside was no longer accessible. The three girls stood silently before him, their presence like a pressure on his chest, their eyes locked on his every move. It was clear. Whatever had begun with the drink, it was far from over. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, not just by them, but by something deeper. The chill in the air grew colder, and John found it hard to breathe. "I don't understand," he said, his voice shaking as he looked at the girls. "Why me? What do you want with me?" The silver-haired girl, who seemed to radiate an otherworldly calm, stepped forward slowly. Her eyes softened, but the weight of her gaze felt like an anchor pulling him deeper into unknown waters. "We don't want anything from you, John," she said, her voice gentle yet hauntingly cold. "What we need is for you to understand why you're here and how we fit into your world." John frowned, confused. "What are you talking about?" The glowing girl, her skin shimmering like a galaxy trapped within her body, lifted her head slightly as though sensing something beyond the room. "You're not the first human to be caught in this web," she said softly. "We've been here longer than you realize. We've been watching, learning, and now you've made the choice to help us." John's pulse quickened. He backed up a step, but they followed, their gaze unyielding. "Help you?" he repeated, his voice barely a whisper. "I didn't agree to any of this. I don't even know what you are." The girl with the black eyes stepped forward, her voice a quiet murmur, but it resonated in his mind like a distant thunderclap. "You've already helped, without even knowing it, John. The drink bound you to us. But it's more than just a connection between you and us. You've unwittingly become a key to something bigger." John's heart pounded as he struggled to understand. The words didn't make sense. "What do you mean, a key? A key to what?" The silver-haired girl's eyes flashed with a brief flicker of something darker. "To the future," she replied cryptically. "To a war that has been raging in the stars, out of sight. To a conflict that's been brewing long before you ever stepped into this bar." The room seemed to grow colder, and John's skin prickled with the unsettling realization that they weren't just talking about some metaphorical war. They were talking about a real war, a war that would reach Earth, a war that had already begun. John took a shaky breath, trying to gather his thoughts. Are you saying you're not just girls? You're soldiers? Spies?" The girl with the black eyes looked at him silently, but her expression darkened. "We are both," she said slowly. "We are more than you can comprehend, and we are not just here for you. We are here for the entire planet. We were sent to infiltrate, to observe, to gather information. But now, we need you. You've awakened something inside of us." John recoiled, his mind racing. This wasn't just some strange encounter. It wasn't just a gift or a curse. These girls weren't random aliens. They were part of something far bigger, something much more dangerous. He had unwittingly gotten tangled in a web of intergalactic conflict that he had no way of escaping. "What are you saying? What do you want from me?" John asked, his voice hoarse, barely able to make sense of it all. The glowing girl's face softened as she stepped closer. "We didn't want to put you in the middle of this," she said, her voice laced with regret. But you've already become involved. The drink connected you to us, and now you are a part of the war that is coming. John's chest tightened, his throat dry. He took another step back, his thoughts racing. The fate of Earth wasn't just a question of aliens in the stars. It was personal. He had no idea how he fit into all of this, but the truth was slowly dawning on him. He was no longer just a bystander. He was a player in a game he had never agreed to join. As he looked at the three girls, each beautiful, each more alien than he could have ever imagined, he realized that they weren't his salvation. They were a part of the storm, and that storm was coming for Earth. The silver-haired girl placed a hand gently on his shoulder. It's not about what we want from you, John. It's about what we have to do. The war is coming, and we are not the only ones looking for a key. John's eyes widened in realization. The keys were not just limited to him and the girls. There were others. And those others, they weren't as kind. As the weight of their words settled in his chest, John understood. He wasn't just trapped in a deal. He was trapped in something much larger, something beyond his control. And it was about to change everything. The hidden agenda. The air was thick with tension, and John could feel his heart pounding in his chest like a drum. The bar, once a place of quiet escape, now felt like a trap, its walls closing in on him, with every passing second. He could hardly believe the words that had just left the girl's lips. The war is coming. But even as the words echoed in his mind, something else was gnawing at him, a deeper sense of foreboding. The realization had dawned. This wasn't just about aliens and Earth. It was about something much more personal. The silver-haired girl, who had been silent for a while, took a step forward. You still don't understand, do you, John? You think you're just some random human caught in our path. But you're not. You're a part of something far bigger, something ancient. John stared at her, confusion and dread swirling within him. I don't understand what you're saying. You keep talking about a war, but what does that have to do with me? Why did you choose me? What makes me so special? What makes me so special? The glowing girl, her skin shimmering like the night sky, tilted her head. You were never chosen, John. It's not about choice. It's about fate. And fate brought you here. She stepped closer, her movements graceful, almost hypnotic. The war is not just between us and our enemies. It's about the balance of the universe itself. And you, whether you realize it or not, are a key player in what happens next. John shook his head in disbelief, his thoughts racing. A key player? I'm just a guy who wanted a drink. A guy who got tangled in your strange little deal. How am I supposed to be a key player in some war? The third girl, the one with the black eyes, finally spoke again. Her voice was softer, but the weight of it felt like a hammer on his chest. You're not just a guy, John. You are human, and that makes you valuable. You've heard the stories, haven't you? The legends of ancient civilizations, the ones who spoke of a great struggle between the stars. Earth was never meant to remain untouched. You, your people, are more connected to this war than you think. John's eyes widened. Earth has been a part of this war all along? The girl with the black eyes nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. For centuries, long before your time, long before any human even thought to look up at the stars, Earth is more than just a planet. It's a prize, a key to something ancient. And you, John, you've just become a part of it. John's mind spun as he tried to process everything they were telling him. He had thought the drink was just some strange alien exchange, a weird encounter that would never make sense. But now it was clear that the stakes were higher than anything he could have imagined. He wasn't just stuck with 3 alien girls. He was stuck in the middle of a cosmic war that had been unfolding for longer than human history. And somehow, he was at the center of it all. So what does that mean for me? John asked, his voice barely above a whisper. What do you need from me? The silver-haired girl's eyes gleamed, but there was no warmth in her gaze. We don't need anything from you, John. Not in the way you think. You've already done your part. The bond has been made, and that bond will grow stronger with time. The glowing girl's lips curled into a small smile. You've felt it already, haven't you? That connection. The pull between us. It's not just emotional. It's more than that. It's mental. It's physical. You are connected. To us and through us, you are connected to the larger battle. The forces that will come for Earth will sense this connection. And soon they'll come for you too. John felt his stomach churn. His mind raced, trying to grasp the reality of what they were saying. He had thought that the strange, glowing liquid had only made him feel a little different, a little disconnected from his own world. But now he understood that it had done something far more dangerous. It had made him a target. But why? John asked, almost pleading. Why me? Why am I the one they'll come for? The girl with the black eyes stepped forward, her expression intense. Because, John, you are the bridge. You're the link between Earth and the stars, and the forces that have been watching this planet for centuries. They've known about you. They've been waiting for someone like you. Someone who could tip the balance. John recoiled, his heart racing. What balance? What are you talking about? I'm just a normal guy. I don't want to be part of any war. I don't want any of this. The silver-haired girl's gaze softened slightly, but her voice remained firm. You may not have asked for it, John, but you're already a part of this war. Whether you want to be or not, you can run, you can hide, but sooner or later the war will find you. And when it does, you'll have to choose what side you're on. John felt his knees go weak, and he stumbled slightly, grabbing the edge of the table for support. His thoughts were jumbled, his mind struggling to make sense of it all. He had walked into this bar thinking it was just another night, another drink to take the edge off. But now, his life was spiraling into something far bigger than he could ever have imagined. The glowing girl looked at him, her eyes steady. You may not understand now, but you will. Soon. The war is coming, John. And when it does, your choices will shape the future of Earth and the universe itself. John looked at the three girls, the weight of their words settling in his chest, like a stone. He wasn't just trapped in some alien deal. He was at the beginning of something that could change everything, and somehow, he was going to have to figure out how to survive it. Trapped and betrayed, the weight of the girl's words hung heavily in the air, and John felt himself suffocating under the pressure of everything he had just learned. He had come to this bar to escape his life for a few hours, but now, his life had become something unrecognizable. The drink, the deal, the girls, they had all been part of something he hadn't signed up for. But now that he was entangled in their web, there was no easy way out. He couldn't shake the feeling that the walls of the bar were closing in on him. The dim lighting flickered ominously, the sound of muffled chatter from the other patrons a distant hum. The girls stood before him, their eyes never leaving his face, as if waiting for him to make the next move. But there was something different, in their gaze now, something colder. You don't understand yet, do you? The glowing girl's voice cut through the silence, her tone calm, but with an edge that sent a shiver down his spine. You think this is some kind of game, some alien trick. But we didn't choose you for your strength, your courage, or your will. We chose you because you were weak. John's blood ran cold at her words. Weak? He repeated, his voice trembling. You think I'm weak? What do you mean by that? The silver-haired girl took a step closer, her eyes sharp and unblinking. You've always been weak, John. That's why you were so easy to manipulate. You were lost, struggling to find purpose, to escape the mundane life you had. You wanted this. You needed something more. Her words weren't harsh, but they cut deeper than any insult. That's why we found you. John stepped back, his chest tightening. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't expected them to turn on him, to make him feel like a pawn in their twisted game. He had thought they needed him for something noble, something worth fighting for. But now, it was clear. They had never seen him as a hero. They had seen him as a tool. He had been nothing more than a means to an end. But as the reality of his situation began to sink in, John's anger flared. You think you can just use me and discard me like some kind of object? You've got another thing coming. The black-eyed girl finally spoke, her voice like a whisper that vibrated through his bones. You're wrong, John. We didn't just need you, we created you. That bond you feel, it's not just a connection, it's a manipulation. We've been planting the seeds of your dependence on us from the very beginning. John's head spun. His thoughts were scrambled, and the anger bubbling inside him began to give way to something far worse, a sense of betrayal. His hand clenched into a fist, and for the first time since meeting them, he truly understood how much power they had over him. He hadn't just made a simple, stupid deal. He had unknowingly walked into something far darker. Don't you get it, John? The glowing girl's voice was almost pitying now. You're not in control here, you never were. The moment you drank that liquid, the moment you allowed us to bind you to us, you gave up your freedom. John's breath caught in his throat. His stomach twisted into knots. The dread that had been creeping up on him ever since he took that first sip of the strange drink was now overwhelming. They had known. They had planned this. They had anticipated his every move. The connection, the bond, the strange pull he had felt towards them. It was all part of their manipulation. And now, he was trapped. You think I'm just going to stand here and let you do this to me? John snapped, his voice laced with fury. I'm not your pawn. I'm not going to be some key in your war. The silver-haired girl's smile faded, replaced by a look of coldness. That's the problem, John. You still think you have a choice? Her voice dropped, becoming almost menacing. There's no way out. You can't escape this. The bond has already taken hold, and no matter how much you struggle, you can't break it. John's thoughts raced, his chest tightening as he realized the full weight of his situation. They were right. He couldn't escape them. The bond was already inside him, running deeper than he had ever imagined. He had been manipulated from the moment he drank that liquid. He was a part of something far bigger than he had ever dreamed. And there was no way to undo it. You've been a part of this from the start, John, the black-eyed girl said softly, almost like a warning. Your resistance only makes you more dangerous to us. You will learn soon enough that it's better to accept your role. John's pulse quickened as the reality of his situation began to settle in. He had made a terrible mistake. The war, the girls, the alien deal. It was all too much for him to handle. And as they stood before him, the cold truth was undeniable. He was no longer in control of his life. He had become part of their game, and there was no way to win. The silver-haired girl leaned in, her voice low, almost soothing. You'll understand soon enough, John. There's no escaping the fate we've set for you. The sooner you accept it, the easier it will be. The words echoed in his mind like a death sentence, and he knew that he had no choice but to play along for now. The game had changed, and this time the stakes were far higher than anything he could have imagined. The bar, once a dark corner of John's escape, now felt like the epicenter of a storm that had already begun to break loose. His mind was spiraling, his breath shallow as the realization of his situation hit him harder with every passing moment. He had been trapped from the start, hooked in a game far beyond his understanding. The girls had played him, manipulated him, and now, the war they had warned him about was on the horizon. The final piece had been set in motion. For the first time since he had met them, John felt a strange surge of clarity. They had underestimated him. They thought he was weak, a pawn they could easily control, but they had forgotten one thing. John was human, and no matter how much they tried to manipulate him, there was still something deep inside him that resisted. He wasn't ready to let them win. You think you've won, don't you? John spat, the words sharp and full of defiance. The silver-haired girl, who had always been the calmest of the three, watched him intently, a faint smile playing on her lips. You still don't understand, do you? We've already won. You're already part of the plan. John clenched his fists. The bond they had forced on him, the one he could feel pulsing under his skin, almost felt like a weight he could never escape. But something in his gut told him that it wasn't over yet. He hadn't made it this far only to roll over and play into their hands. He was going to take back control no matter what it cost him. You're wrong. he said, his voice trembling with the mix of fear and determination. I'm not just going to lie down and let you use me. You think I'm just a tool, a key to your war, but I'm not. I'm a person, and I will fight. The glowing girl, her body shimmering like stardust, stepped forward, her face unreadable. You don't get it, John. You can't fight. The war is already here. Your role has already been decided. And when the enemy comes, when the battle begins, you will either accept your place or you will be destroyed. John's pulse raced as her words settled into his mind. The weight of the war, the knowledge that there were enemies out there hunting him now was a terrifying thought. But even more terrifying was the idea that he might not have a choice in what happened next. What if I don't accept? John asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The black-eyed girl's smile was cold, and for the first time it seemed to hold a hint of something darker. Then you will face the consequences, John. You'll face the enemies we've been preparing for, and you'll face the truth. You cannot outrun this war. The room grew colder, and the girls seemed to draw closer to him, their presence almost suffocating. He could feel the power of the bond between them growing stronger, pushing him further into their grasp. But there was a flicker of something, in his chest, a rebellious spark that refused to be extinguished. Without warning, John took a step back, his eyes darting around the room. This wasn't just about them anymore, it was about survival, about taking back his life. He couldn't let them win. Not like this. Enough, John said, his voice suddenly steady, his heart pounding. If this is the war you're talking about, then I'll fight my own way. I'll make my own decisions. Before the girls could react, John turned and bolted for the door. His feet hit the ground hard as he pushed through the bar's entrance, the cold night air rushing to meet him. The city outside, once familiar and comforting, now felt like a place he didn't recognize, a place where danger lurked in the shadows. But for the first time since all this had started, he felt a surge of freedom. He didn't know what awaited him outside, but he wasn't going to wait for them to pull him back into their web. As he ran through the streets, John realized something crucial. He wasn't just a pawn in their game. He had more control over his destiny than he had ever believed. The bond, the connection, they had thought it would make him weak, but it had only made him stronger. The girls would chase him, of that he was certain. But they had underestimated him. They had made a critical mistake. They had thought they could control him, but they had no idea what kind of fight he was capable of. The world around him was chaotic, the distant sound of sirens and the hum of the city streets a constant reminder of the stakes. But John didn't care. He wasn't running away from his fate. He was fighting for it. As he turned a corner and disappeared into the night, a single thought echoed in his mind. This war, their war, was far from over. But now, it was his fight too.